Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
All right, welcome to a quick impromptu live that I decided to do. I was getting into a lively discussion here with Sean, there he is, and we were talking about the separation of church and state, right? We were actually discussing the Micah Beckwith upcoming the convention to elect, well, at least nominate the next lieutenant governor of the state of Indiana. And one of the concerns that has been consistent is the fact that Micah Beckwith is a pastor. So there's the concern, the worry that he may potentially want to rule from Christianity's perspective, right? And like, many people, separation of church and state, separation of church and state. Okay, yes. However, counterpoint, and I wish I could be the genius that came up with this, but I'm not. Mike actually mentioned it, and he makes a fantastic point, and that is people when they talk about their identities, right? Because he was asked, can you separate your identity as a pastor from your office of lieutenant governor? And he was like, yes, but. And they're like, okay. Everyone else is okay to in their identity, right? People are celebrated when they come out of the closet, LGBTQ, whatever, woman or this or that. Their identities are not only okay, but celebrated, right? Yes, queen. Oh, yes, all that stuff, right? But as a white Christian male, you are supposed to separate your identity from what? Like, at least for me, my belief in God is a fundamental part of myself. And it's not something I can separate from myself other than, I suppose, a fact-based approach to government. But it brings up the point, and here's, like, I guess the resolution here is, it brings up separation of church and state. We've all heard it. Separation of church and state. Separation of church and state. Where did that originate? Where did it come from?
From Thomas Jefferson.
Right. But where initially did he say that? And a lot of people think, well, he said it all the time. But he didn't. It's actually from a single letter that he penned. And it's right here. This is from Bridgewater State University. And I don't know, I'm not familiar with Bridgewater.
I'm not either.
But I will say this right here, the first line at least, is true. In 1802, let's make this clear. In 1802, Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to the Danbury, Connecticut Baptist Convention in which he presented his views on the relationship between religion and the role of the state in the new nation, basing his views on the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, which said there should be, quote, no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Jefferson stated that there must be a wall of separation that clearly limited the involvement of religious denominations and religious leaders in matters related to national governance. Founding fathers like Jefferson were concerned that allowing religion and religious denominations to cross over the wall and introduce beliefs and practices into the governing realm would create a polarizing environment that could make policy decisions and national leadership a difficult and contentious process. Now, here's why I mention that, because I do find it interesting. The entirety of the founding documents were based on Christian values.
Judeo-Christian.
Yeah, Judeo-Christian. Yeah, but we'll talk about that another time. I call it Christian values nowadays because, you know what? I'm just going to say it, because the not the Torah to a lesser degree, but the Talmud. Are you familiar with the Talmud?
I am not.
Okay. It is another aspect of the Jewish faith that is not as well known. And let's just say the values do not align with Christianity.
Okay.
At all. And that's as far as I'm going to take it right now. But I do want to dive into it more because it's fascinating. However, for the purposes of this discussion, the foundation of this country was a very Christian foundation. Most of the founding fathers were professed deep Christian, deeply religious Christians who believed that, you know, God and mankind and all the things that the Bible tells us, right, were the way it is. But more importantly, that you could not have a moral nation without the guidance of Christian values. The respect for others, the, you know, wanting to treat others as you want to be treated. Because in an anarchist society or an atheist belief system, what's moral?
True.
Morality is a gray, very weird thing. That's where morals actually come from. So I think it's an interesting conversation, right? So let's talk about separation of church and state, right? It started with that letter. And then, let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then, as was the case with much of the language of the Bill of Rights and other articles of the Constitution, the federal court system had to interpret the Establishment Clause as it applied to real life experiences and conditions. For example, in a case out of Utah in 1879, Reynolds v. U.S., the court held that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons, were not exempt from supporting polygamy among their faithful. The justices stated that the practice of polygamy was indeed an example of moving over the walls of separation. Later, in a landmark decision in 1947, a divided Supreme Court agreed that providing bus transportation for children attending a Catholic school did not violate the Establishment Clause or the separation of church and state. The justices stated that because the state funds to pay for the bus service was given to the parents and not to the church as a religious institution, there was no constitutional infringement. I'm looking, there was a Supreme Court case. Let's see here. I'm looking for it in this. I thought it was in this, but it may not be. There was a Supreme Court case that took that letter and ran with it. Basically, that one single letter. Where is it? Wait. Okay. So let's see. I think this is it. Let's see. It's talking about going back to this guy, Roger Williams, a Puritan minister who founded a new form of government based on this idea. Williams referenced a high wall between church and state to keep the wilderness of governments out of the affairs of religion. Essentially, he wanted to stop the chaos and immorality of government from invading the purity of a person's conscience and their freedom to find their own truth or salvation. Let's see here. Even more profoundly, the form of government, this is really, really important. The form of government the Constitution creates was designed to limit the authority of the government. It's not about limiting us, the people. It's about limiting the government to civil issues only. It does this by making the people the sole authority of government. As a result, it protects everyone's individual liberty to worship or not, however they choose, without the government being allowed to intervene. Let's see here. Before the founding of the colony of Rhode Island and Province Plantations, today known as the state of Rhode Island, governments claimed to derive their authority from a god. In some cases, the supreme leader of a country was considered a god. Ancient Rome, Japan until 1945, for example, a political system called a theocracy. So if any inhabitant of that country dared to question the authority of a law or magistrate, government official, they could be accused of defying the law of the god or gods. Historians refer to this position of power as the divine right to rule. In the few centuries after the fall of the Roman Empire, many European kings chose to adopt Christianity as the official religion of their kingdom. Over the centuries, Christianity became the dominant political structure. During the reign of Henry VIII, Pope Leo X granted him the title Defender of the Faith. It was an effective tool to solidify England's bond to Spain and other Catholic nations, but blah, 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 blah. So let's see here. So here in America, Puritans set up new governments with the same source of power, religious authority. They claimed that their right to rule was granted to them by the Christian God. Therefore, they had absolute power to punish people for their thoughts, beliefs, even bad luck. People humiliated, shunned out of town, fined, beaten, mutilated, tortured, and killed. These acts of punishment weren't for violating civil laws, but interpretations of divine laws. In 1636, this punishment happened to Roger Williams. He was banished from his home in Salem for preaching, quote, new and dangerous ideas, such as religious freedom and spiritual equality. Think about that, man. It's wild, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How far have we come that we've come to that, and now we're headed back to that? Like it's interesting because you can't possibly tell people that you have the right to do what you want unless you're a Christian. You have the right to talk unless you're a Christian. So they talk about how they're going to use democracy, but let's see here. Here it is. The Constitution. Thomas Jefferson, in his letter to the Danbury Baptists, right? It talks about, is it possible that Jefferson was inspired by Roger Williams to use the wall of separation metaphor? We may never know. The First Amendment prevents the government from creating or establishing a religion and thereby prevents the power of the government from expanding beyond civil matters. In other words, the government's only supposed to be able to rule on civil matters. Nothing to do with religion. That's up to you guys. You guys do what you want with the religion, right? In 1788, the Constitution was ratified. This sentence assures all the world that the United States government derives its authority from the people. We, the people, just like behind me. And that in striving for a more perfect union, it is flawed and can and should be changed to reflect the will of the people. These aspects of the Constitution were designed to ensure our liberties into the future. It was a single letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote that he happened to mention the phrase separation of church and state. It's gone crazy now with people assuming that just because someone's a Christian pastor that they're going to start some sort of theocracy. Number one, the very foundations of our government prevent him from doing so. Why would it be so wrong for someone to not even create laws, because the lieutenant governor doesn't create any laws, but to fulfill the duties of his office? That's what I was looking for, to fulfill the duties of his office from a Christian perspective. Why would that be so wrong? Yeah. It's a hard one to answer, isn't it?
It is.
It is, because you think about it from that perspective and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Because again, we celebrate all kinds of identities except white Christian men now. You come out of the closet as gay or trans or a fish, you're celebrated, right? I'm just dumb.
I know.
But you're celebrated. Yeah. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
queen. Right? But fulfilling the duties of your office from a Christian perspective, oh my God, the lieutenant governor doesn't create laws. And even if he did, that's the purpose of a diverse legislature. To go, yeah, no, we're not gonna do that. It's supposed to be the purpose of the damn Supreme Court to eliminate or rule invalid any laws that violate the Constitution.
You're saying there's checks and balances already in.
There are checks and balances already in place, so I don't see it as being such a foreign concept for someone to have Christian values and hold office. Just because someone's a pastor doesn't mean that all of their speeches are going to start with a prayer. And even if they did, okay, don't pray if you don't want to. But okay, that might be a little but it doesn't mean that. It simply means because the entire nation was founded on Christian values. Period. So I'm having a hard time understanding. Like I get their apprehension, but the fear mongering has gotten ridiculous on it. It just has. And more importantly, people can be who they want and they're celebrated, but yet he has to separate his identity. And look, all other BS aside, what did Julie McGuire do during the lockdowns? I don't know.
I was just going to say, what did she do?
Yeah, she was an aide to, or she was helped with Senate rules or something prior to her being a state rep, right?
I never heard of her before Braun picked her.
Right. She was run against John Jacob in the primary. They spent over $600,000 to get her elected.
In a state house race. That's crazy.
It's insane. But what did she do? I know what Micah Beckwith did during the pandemic. He consistently and loudly told the governor, you can't shut down the churches and you cannot force people to take things into their body. Mm-hmm. He wrote letter after letter after letter after letter for people for religious exemptions. So what did Julie McGuire do when the chips were down? I have no freaking idea. What did Micah Beckwith do? Stood the hell up. And he put his reputation on the line because given the environment at the time, it was completely possible that the government would come in and shut him down.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't care. How many people stayed silent, dude? How many people stayed silent? A lot. Even the people who were otherwise good, quality conservatives and believed this, that, and the other, Micah Beckwith did not stay silent. He did what he needed to do, what he believed in. Like, he has my vote. Like, nothing at this point, especially given all the things that are going on in the background, nothing Julie McGuire or her team does at this point is going to convince me to vote for her.
It's going to be an interesting weekend for you.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be an interesting weekend. Yeah. So let's see here. We got I agree with you, Tom, and we're gonna address that. This was just a quick. I just wanted to talk about this real quick because I thought it would make for an interesting back and forth conversation. We're gonna end this video here in a little bit, and then we're gonna go live with the actual one we wanted to do, which is,
wasn't it the Merrick Garland found in contempt?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, Merrick Garland was found in contempt. We're gonna jump into that. We got timestamps and everything. So
the House debate.
The House debate. Yeah, we're gonna get it ready soon. It says, Tom says, and now we have Russian warships off our Florida coast, and it's crickets for our media. This administration is unbelievable. November 5th can't get here fast enough. Exactly. Once again, we see the hypocrisy from the media when Trump would make a phone call, he was about to get us into World War III.
Or when he had the little spat with North Korea, he's going to create a nuclear war.
Yeah, he's going to give us nuclear war. We have Russian warships with nuclear warheads.
I heard that there's no nuclear war.
Oh, okay. There's no nukes on it. I don't know. Allegedly, it's capable of it, but doesn't have any or something.
FOTS reported that today, that there's something nuclear on there. I think it's run by nuclear energy.
It may be a reactor or something that's on there, but either way,
it's
we
still
have Russian
scary.
Warships very close to our coast. Cuba's not far, dude. It's 100 miles from Florida,
something like that.
Something like that. I think it's 90 miles, something. It's right there. Cuban Missile Crisis, almost all over again. And what does the diaper wearer in chief do? Poop his pants on the world stage.
That was so embarrassing.
A foreign leader, dude.
Smell people's hair.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna end this. I found it interesting though. The foundation of the thought separation of church and state.
That is interesting.
It's from a single line of a letter, and again, our founding fathers believed that the only way to have a moral nation was to have the foundation of Christianity. Something to think about. And it's something I think we'll dive into in a later episode. But yeah,
we'll be back.
We'll be back in just a few minutes, 7:00.
Top of the hour.
Get the stuff ready for you. So I got the timestamps all good to go, and we'll see you then. God bless you. God bless Indiana, and God bless the United States of America. See you guys very, very soon.